Well, friends, we're back for another episode of WSIB Truth Matters, the Wednesday edition, focus on WSIAT. So last week I talked about the Whistleblower Report that was released by the Ontario Federation of Labour in conjunction with the Ontario Network of Injured Workers Groups back in November of 2015. The Whistleblowers Report, Prescriptions Overruled is the title of the report. And it goes extensively into significant concerns that the medical community was having over a prolonged period of time about how their patients were being treated by the WSIB. There were a number of concerns noted in the report. I talked about that in my presentation of last week in that video. And as I'm sure for those of you who had an opportunity to view that video, it's some pretty serious shit. For as long as I can remember, and I was injured on February 20th, 1986. I'll never forget that day. And I'm sure you have a date in your mind that you won't forget. And I had nothing but problems with these people right from the beginning. And then I got into business helping injured workers. And that was in probably around the early part of 1989. So I've been doing this for over 30 years. And I've seen all kinds of shit come and go and all kinds of idiots come and go. I've seen people go from the WSIB that should have never been there. And yet I see those who are still there that I have no idea how they manage to keep their bullshit from being, rooted out by others. But it's a culture. And when you're dealing with a culture that promotes negativity, that has an attitude of a mission of denying or limiting benefits to injured workers, when it's a culture, you don't have heroes. You don't have anybody who has the balls to step out of that cesspool of bullshit and nonsense and say, "Hey, I can't do this anymore, and this is wrong. We can't do this. This is just absolutely wrong, morally wrong, ethically wrong. It's wrong on all levels." So take a moment and just watch the screen for a moment. As you see, my friends, that person, that doctor, decided, I'm not going to compromise my principles for you assholes. And she got fired. And she filed a lawsuit. For over 30 years since I've been involved in this business, I haven't seen one single act from the WSIB that would give any sort of hope that they really have come to recognize what their purpose is, which is to compensate injured workers when they need it. The 5 Meredith principles that I talked about in one of my first videos. What's going on today has absolutely nothing to do with those principles. In fact, Sir William Meredith must have been turning in his grave for decades, just looking at the harm that these assholes have perpetrated against injured workers. So my thumbnail, can WSIAT tame the beast, this WSIB beast. You know, there's dog whisperers, and you call them in when you have a dog that doesn't listen and is aggressive. And somehow a dog whisperer is able to draw out the best from that dog, and the dog becomes docile and obedient and, you know, all the good things that you want and expect from a pet. Is there a WSIB whisperer? Because many have had their hands in that pot, and I mean, the last guy who was in charge, you know, he grew the coffers of the WSIB, eliminated the unfunded liability, $14 billion, and that was enough. So he was able to build another $3 billion or $2.5 billion, whatever, and then give it back to employers. I mean, all of it was done in the backs of injured workers. And, you know, the report, the whistleblower report, was centered around 4 key areas that really affect every aspect of entitlement for an injured worker. And one of them is WSIB ignoring injured workers' doctors when it comes to readiness to return to work, putting injured workers at risk, forcing them back to work before they're ready to go, causing re-injury or another injury or harm to another worker, insufficient treatment. These assholes have the actual audacity to say, no, your doctor's saying that, you know, you need another 6 weeks of physio or whatever, but now you're good. You're good to go back to work. On what planet is this okay? And then they blame legitimate compensable problems that happened as a result of a recent injury on a pre-existing condition that was never symptomatic, that only became symptomatic as a result of this injury, and have the audacity to say, you're not working because of your pre-existing condition. It adds insults to injury. It's pathetic. And then they have these assholes, paper doctors. Who the hell are they? Where do they get them to compromise their integrity and their values and to betray their ethics, to do these reviews and then provide an opinion that is totally out to lunch? So there were a number of doctors that signed on to this whistleblower report, and there should have been more, because it's wrong. Injured workers need help. Without proper treatment and without being able to get paid while they need to have their treatment, and without having their treatment covered and paid for so they don't have an additional burden on the family budget, which is already stretched, they need help. How many fucking reports is it going to take for these assholes to realize that what they're doing is wrong, it's not sustainable, and it cannot continue to happen? This report was introduced and read at Queen's Park in November of 2015. It was a comprehensive report, well written, enumerating all of the issues as I've discussed them here. And they made a recommendation, and they submitted the report jointly to the Ombudsman of Ontario to do an investigation, to try and help tame this beast, and to try to bring people online, unreasonable people online, to doing what they're supposed to be doing. Where do they go from there? We're literally coming up on the 8th anniversary of the report. And I've done my research. Where did they go from there? The authors of the report provided 5 very reasonable, well thought out, evidence-based recommendations. 1, to have Ontario's Ombudsman launch a formal investigation into the WSIB's treatment of medical advice, particularly the way in which healthcare providers' professional advice is often not considered and the lack of explanation offered. It's outrageous that that still goes on today in this country. Number 2, collect and make public statistics on how often injured workers' healthcare providers' advice is disregarded, because it's going to be a ton of them. Number 3, create a protocol that regulates rapid response times for requests from injured workers' healthcare team. For example, requiring a decision within 48 hours when an urgent request for care is submitted to the board. Yes, because if one of these assholes has a back injury or breaks a leg or falls off a scaffolding and breaks their back, they're going to be begging for treatment today, right now. Not in 2 days, not in 78 hours, not in 48 hours, not in 6 fucking months. They're going to want it today. But they've never they've never had to experience that. It's a shame, because they should, because then they would understand what it's like to be compassionate and understanding and wanting to do the right thing at the right time when it's needed, not after the fact, particularly when you have the authority to do that. And the WSIB Act has all of the sections appropriate. Section 33, which states that every injured worker is entitled to healthcare treatment. Number 4, to eliminate the use of so-called paper doctors who render decisions about care without ever meeting the patient. So if your car you have trouble with your car and it's not running, are you going to call a mechanic who hasn't looked at your car, hasn't been in there around the engine or whatever, and say, hey, my car stopped working? And he's going to say, well, why don't you just turn the key on? It should be able to work. Or are you going to take your car to a mechanic to have a mechanic who's licensed, who understands cars, who's a professional, to tell you what's wrong with your car and then recommend what to do? Isn't that the prudent thing to do? So what do they come off with, these paper doctors? What the fuck did they get their licenses? They compromise their integrity all of the time, and I have no problem saying this because I've seen it happen thousands of times with my own clients. I can bring up files and memos and hundreds and thousands of memos showing that, where you have a doctor sitting at the WSIB who's never probably assessed any patient ever in his or her life, making recommendations about treatment for an injured worker. And number 5, give proper weight to the opinions of medical professionals who know the injured worker best, their own healthcare team. Five easy, well thought out, evidence-based recommendations. Where did they go? Did they fall on deaf ears? Did anybody do a damn thing about it? Well, we're going to assess this in the next video, my friends. As you can tell, I'm in one of those usual animated, pissed off moods, because every time I get into this shit, it doesn't make any sense to me why it's happening. And my passion for injured workers and to protect and to help injured workers has been invigorated 1,000,000 times over to do everything within my power to put these assholes in their place and to get justice for injured workers. Because truth matters, WSIB. Truth matters. So next week, we're going to talk about what's happened since the report. I'll have some very interesting things for you to see. And more importantly, I do believe that The Workplace Safety and Insurance Appeals Tribunal is the only organization right now that can help injured workers get justice in their claims. I have zero faith whatsoever, zero, in the WSIB, and I'm not the only one, folks. As always, thank you for taking the time to listen. I know sometimes I can get off on a rant, but that's me. That's Joe Machado. I tell it like it is. I don't mince words. I don't candy coat it. And I'm passionate about it. Please share my videos with others. My goal is to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of January. I believe I can do that. I built the largest paralegal firm in Ontario with over 10,000 clients spread out all over this province. We were able to help thousands of our clients, settled hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements for our clients. And with this YouTube channel, I want to reach every single injured worker. I want to be able to get that power back and put these people in their place once and for all. As always, my friends, take care.